Nestled near rolling wheat fields at the junction of Highways 23 and 28, about 60 miles southwest of Spokane, sits a landmark that has survived the test of time. Thanks to a small group of people in the tiny town of Harrington, population about 500, they took it upon themselves to preserve a functional brick building that served through the years as the social center of Lincoln County. Sitting on the corner of South 3rd and West Willis, a building known as the Bank Block houses an opera house that has become a community treasure.
Well, originally it was built for kind of the social center of Harrington, and they have card parties up here, dances, lodge meetings, all sorts of community events up in the Opera House. It was a pretty famous place. Every week they had something going on, so it was the hub of all social life in practically all Lincoln County, I think.
The Bank Block building, built in 1904, was a commercial venture, and while it housed local businesses, the pièce de résistance was the Opera House on the second floor, serving a thriving small community that drew largely from the area agricultural community.
Back in the old days, you know, we had these smaller farms and had families, 7, 8 people in them, and made quite a difference for your school and your community and everything, you know. As the farms got bigger, of course, less population, less people, less commerce going on in town, and gradually people just couldn't make a living, and away they go.
The Opera House, in its heyday, served the community of Harrington and the people of Lincoln County for over 40 years. But as the businesses dried up, the Opera House couldn't survive, falling to the same fate brought on by the lack of business.
Opera House itself closed up in 1946. It was the last performance they had here. The St. Valentine's Day dance. And when we took over, the St. Valentine's Day decorations and stuff was still hanging in the wall and across the ceiling, and just like they walked away and left it. And that was the way we found it up here. Open rafters and pigeons flying around.
Back in 1992, this building was in complete disarray. And there were several of us that had talked about trying to establish an organization to restore it, but we didn't get very far. By the end or the middle of '93, we were a 501c3, a nonprofit corporation. We call it the Harrington Opera House Society. And from there, that opened doors that we could go on and start refurbishing this and renovating it. Once your old buildings are gone, that's part of your history that's gone. These buildings are part of our history. The architecture, the history of who was in the building, what businesses were in the building. We can't lose that. If we lose that, then we lose part of who we are. And that is, I know you're not supposed to say that assets are part of who you are, but a community it is.
Billy's husband, Gordon, a local farmer with an engineering background, stepped into the fray as the man in charge of making sure they didn't lose the Opera House to the ravages of time.
First thing is preserve the building so it didn't do any more deterioration. And then as we had fundraisers and get help to make some modifications, make some repairs, it was just a matter of picking out the worst ones first to keep the structure sound. Over the years, I've become fascinated with brick buildings. And any brick building that's in trouble, I'm worried. So this was a prime example. There probably wasn't another year or two left before it was going to collapse. There was some major cracks and the roof had caved in. But since it had been sitting empty since the 50s, nobody had maintained anything, so the drains were all plugged on the roof, and it all came down scuppers inside the walls. So as they plugged up, pipes rusted through and broke, flooded the walls, ate mortar out. Some of the walls moved out a couple of inches, and we had to pull those back in. So it was quite a project at first. The original roof was steel sheets, like imitation slate, but they were actually metal. Each one was separate. When we got the roof up, we were able to get a steel roofing company. They're manufactured to make big sheets that looked like slate and got it back on. So we've restored that pretty much the way it used to look. It is different, but there's nobody alive now that knows the difference, so we're okay.
After dealing with myriad structural deficits, it was time to deal with bringing the structure up to modern-day code, including rewiring the Opera House for modern-day theater lighting and adding another stairway.
And we found out, since we only had the one access, that didn't meet fire codes anymore. So we had to quit using it as far as public functions. We're able to contact an architect, get him involved, and come up with a way to add a second egress exit to this floor. And that's when we got the new staircase built out of the lobby downstairs.
Today, many Lincoln County residents are able to enjoy the fruits of labor of a core group of volunteers who saw the importance of saving such a valuable building that now sits on the National Registry, one that has become an asset that helps pull life back into a waning small town.
This is the core for the community, and we're finding more and more the organizations wanting to use this building as gathering places. So this will definitely help the economic development in the community. We find that we're kind of the catalysts that are bringing people together, and we see that it's going on beyond Harrington, that it's bringing also the other communities that are dying, that this is kind of going to be the hub of artistic performances and events. When somebody gives some money to an organization, they take ownership of that building. And when they see what their money is doing, then they feel like they've had a part of it. And then they become actively involved, and they say they have that feeling that I have helped accomplish this. We're finding that more and more as we get into the years of 21 years since we started this. We have found through the years it's definitely a labor of love. We love this building.
If you have an idea for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.